Hello YouTube world, this is Nicholas Montez here, and welcome back to the Teenage Movie Critic, and I'm your film movie enthusiast, Nicholas Montez. Alright, so it is currently the new year of 2026, and that means this is the year that not a lot of good movies come out, well, a lot of good movies come out, but also it's the year I graduate from high school. So, for the next few months leading up to my graduation, which is on June 2nd, 2026, I'll be doing a list describing my favorite movies throughout my childhood. So this first list, we're doing childhood movies. In March, we're doing elementary school films. May, we're doing middle school movies. And then on my graduation date, I'll be posting my top 10 favorite movies that I watched in high school. And then you'll also do the films that I watched in school, the teachers showed us, and also the class of 2026 favorite films on a tier list. Both of those last two ones will be a tier list. But for right now, we're doing my top 10 favorite movies from my childhood. Also, if you can tell, I'm wearing my Lion King hat that I got for Christmas, as well as my Super Grover hat. My Super Grover shirt, actually, sorry. With that said, let's go ahead and get started talking about my top 10 favorite films of my childhood of all time.
Shrek 2.
Alright, so first one up here we have Shrek 2. So, growing up, my sister absolutely loved the Shrek movies. She also was a big DreamWorks fan. And while I do love the first Shrek, I particularly love the second Shrek a lot more. I think this one just captivates me more. I like the new characters, especially with Puss in Boots. He was a character I was always obsessed with growing up. I love all the soundtracks that they add in here, all the new songs they add in here. We Need a Hero and all that stuff. I love the continuation of the story between Shrek and Fiona and how it creates its other new kind of fairy tale story and kind of takes a spin on it and builds on this story and Far, Far Away and all that stuff. It's just such a good sequel that is so entertaining for Shrek fans.
The SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
Alright, so much like Shrek, SpongeBob was another show, or I guess series, that I grew up with along with my sister. We watched it all the time growing up. Obviously, I kind of grew up with the newer SpongeBob, though my sister never watched it. But this SpongeBob movie was truly a staple for when it came out, and it continues to be a staple ever since. For me, it's the perfect SpongeBob movie because if you don't know, this movie was essentially supposed to be the end of SpongeBob. And the way that it all kind of panned out with Plankton finally getting the secret formula, getting the perfect ultimate evil plan to do what he wants, freezing Mr. Krabs, while at the same time sending SpongeBob and Patrick off on this dangerous journey to retrieve the King's Crown. It's all hilarious, it's all funny, and even kind of packs an emotional punch towards the end where you actually think two of our favorite characters are actually going to die being burned by a lamp. It's so crazy, but it's also the kind of thing that you can watch when you're like high on drugs or something. With the Goofy Goober Rock song. It is just so entertaining, it's so funny, it's so quotable. This is probably one of the few movies that I can actually quote too, and me and my sister are like, we're literally like SpongeBob and Patrick in real life. It's so awesome and crazy and zany, and I honestly love this movie. It is a classic for childhoods.
Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Toy Story 2.
So, back in the 90s, my dad actually used to work at a movie theater. And, as you guys know, the first two Toy Story movies came out in the 90s. So, he practically put those movies in the theater. And, while I do love the first Toy Story like I do with Shrek, I absolutely love the second films of Shrek and Toy Story. And for me, I think Toy Story 2 might be the best Toy Story movie out there. Mainly because it's the only time where we actually get to see these toys, going out, saving someone, having fun. You get the mixture of all the characters that you got from the first film. You get great Buzz Lightyear stuff. But then you also get a great exploration, especially with the new characters of Jessie, Bullseye, and Stinky Pete, about why it's not really good to be with an owner, because you realize all that stuff's going to end one day. And you're going to be abandoned and people will forget about you. And it's the harsh truth about these toys. And it's so captivating while at the same time still being fun and entertaining. And the fact that it's still poignant and still emotional is so incredible and moving. Just being able to watch this whole movie in one weekend, or really the whole trilogy in one weekend, is phenomenal. So this is just another remarkable achievement from Pixar and the Toy Story trilogy. Alright, so this was another movie that I grew up watching with my sister, which is kind of interesting because there were some movies that I probably shouldn't have been watching at this age. This is another movie that came out in 2004. Yeah, 2004 was a pretty great year for movies. So basically, it's the story of Katie Heron coming from Africa, who is white. Doesn't matter if she's not black. Not all African people have to be white, I don't know. Comes to high school, and you just explore the high school people and how this social hierarchy is presented. And the way it is presented is so interesting, and really in the way it shows us the drama of all of the popular girls is really interesting, and how people, this is the perfect example of showing that the people that, if you're jealous of those people that hang out and do all that cool stuff, they're probably not all friends, and they probably talk about each other behind their back. And it's actually quite crazy, because if you are friends, you're supposed to trust each other. The fact that some of them don't is kind of interesting. And even in the way that they make all these secrets and all these rumors, and the way it spills out, it's such a relatable experience, because I've heard stuff about that in other high schools, and I'm like, wow, this is perfectly presented really well. There's also just iconic, funny lines. It's quotable. All the characters are really written well. I'm like thinking, this movie seems so short, but yet it seems so, the pacing feels so nice and good at times. I'm like, this is just such an entertaining movie, such a great film. Absolutely love Mean Girls.
Sesame Street presents Follow That Bird.
Alright, so yeah, we're going way deep into my childhood here with Sesame Street Presents Follow That Bird. So of course, much like SpongeBob, I was a big fan of Sesame Street growing up. I loved the show. I didn't grow up with the older version, though I did grow up with this movie because my family would constantly show it to me. And honestly, I remember I lived with my Nana one time, and I remember watching this movie constantly in her house. And honestly, every time I rewatch this movie, it just makes me think of my Nana's house. And, the smells. Well, not the smells, but it makes me think of the time that I had there. And beyond just that fond memory, I think the movie itself is just a really well-told story. It uses every single character really well. Every character kind of gets a great moment, funny moment. But what also stands out is how well they handle Big Bird and how well they handle him as a great character. Because you compare him to Elmo in Elmo and Grouchland, Elmo's kind of annoying in that one. Big Bird, in this one, he's kind of sweet and endearing, and he actually works better as a main character. But at the same time, you still get all the great Sesame Street stuff you want. And even though we're going outside of the street, it's still a lot of fun, and I like the Muppet movie kind of parallels to it. So, for me, this is an absolute classic for my taste.
Elmo's Christmas Countdown!
Alright, so of course we have another Sesame Street film, except this time it's Christmas themed and it's a Christmas special. So I decided to include this one because it is personally my favorite Christmas movie of all time. It is better than any Christmas movie that I've ever seen, and for good reason. It is such a classic film. It just has great messages on believing in Christmas miracles. Like Follow That Bird, it uses all of the Sesame Street characters very well when they appear. Even though they're not part of the story, they get all great moments and all these great cameos. And speaking of guest star appearances, we also have great guest star appearances from Brad Paisley, Alicia Keys, Ty Pennington, Kevin James as Santa Claus, and all of that. It's also hilarious, possibly one of the funniest Sesame Street movies I've ever seen. It is just so awesome and hilarious. It's so good. This is a film I watch every Christmas season. Christmas doesn't start until I watch Elmo's Christmas Countdown, in my opinion.
DreamWorks Kung Fu Panda.
Alright, so yeah, we have another DreamWorks classic on our hands with Kung Fu Panda. This was another one that my sister and I loved growing up, and me personally, I'm a massive Kung Fu Panda fan growing up, and I love this first movie. I think what it did so well was it took this interesting premise, this funny premise, about a panda doing Kung Fu, and made it so incredibly crazy and zany, but it made it so poignant with an amazing score, fantastic action, a well-done character study between Po, Shifu, and Tai Lung. I will explain much more on that when it comes to like some other video I have planned, but this is a top-tier childhood movie that is action-packed, that is entertaining, that is funny, and is very, very good. Alright, so yeah, we're kind of pushing into a Marvel section here. Granted, there's not going to be too many Marvel movies on this list because Marvel movies didn't really start to become a big thing until like the late 2000s or like the 2010s. So for me, I think that the first Spider-Man is truly one of my favorite movies, personally of all time. But specifically with the first Spider-Man, it truly is a great film. I love this story of Peter Parker, that the fact that like he's just this ordinary kid and gets superpowers and fights all these bad guys. And what's actually fascinating is of our superhero movies, as the first one that kind of made a huge impact, it's crazy to believe that a lot of the superhero stuff in here I'm not all that interested in, even though it's really good. I'm more interested in the characters. So the fact that we're introduced to this comic book character, yet we're so interested into their real lives is so interesting, and I thought their chemistry was great. Like, I actually found this to be more captivating than the Andrew Garfield movies and the Tom Holland movies, because, you know, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, their chemistry worked so well. It felt really authentic, like an actual guy going up to talk to his crush. It felt so real. So overall, this is one that always has stuck with me, and I will always cherish it every single decade, every single year. Alright, so now we have another Pixar classic on our hands, and for me, this is truly my favorite Pixar movie. I think the big reason for that is because it just feels so nostalgic for what it was trying to do at this time. I feel like, you know, just the way I will say, it did kind of bore me a little bit, but at the same time, like, I still really enjoyed it. I personally just love the animation of it. I love how quotable it is. I feel so homey whenever I watch this movie. It is just so incredibly rewatchable, and it's astounding for how Pixar was able to put this film together. And also just, like, the fact that it's just a movie that exists. Like, it's crazy a movie can exist like this, and it's absolutely one of the best films ever made. This is Pixar's magnum opus. Childhood movie of all time, and yes, it is The Lion King. What's actually interesting is I don't really remember watching this movie when I was actually a kid. I remember when I lived in an apartment, I would watch this movie and on TV once, and I remember reading a book about it. But other than that, I don't really remember having fond memories of watching it until I got it on DVD when I moved to my new house about like a few years ago. But honestly, yeah, so it kind of was in my childhood until I started going to Disney World. But honestly, I feel like of all the movies that I rewatched that are on this list, I feel like this was the one that made me feel like a little kid the most. Of course, I watched it early in the morning, and even then, I watched it before I went to school, and even then, it still worked for me. And just beyond that, I mean, the movie is phenomenal. The animation is quite stellar. The characters are so memorable and likable. The music is awesome with the songs and the Hans Zimmer score. The story is quite moving at times because you kind of learn something new about it every single time you watch it. And even then, it's just a remarkably well-told movie. And it's actually crazy that this was going to be, this was basically the Disney's B-Team movie. That the B-Team made this movie, and they all wanted to work on Pocahontas, and they had no idea that this was going to be a natural phenomenon. So, for me, The Lion King is my favorite childhood movie of all time.